Welcome at the Atelier Montreal.
Bienvenue à l'Atelier Montréal de la Festival Academy dans le cadre de la 16e édition du Festival Transamérique. Welcome to our audiences here in Tiohtià:ke and to our audiences online. And for the sake of those audiences, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge that we are on Indigenous territory that has never been ceded by way of treaty. We're in a place that is the cradle of Haudenosaunee culture, called Tiohtià:ke in Kanien'kehá:ka and Muniang in Anishinaabemowin, that has long been a place of encounter between First Nations. It is now also known as Montreal. This theatre is built on land that has its own history since time immemorial, that has carried its own stories, rituals, and performances before colonization. And we are delighted today. Oh, sorry. Inge, it was your turn.
Okay, perfect. So I'm welcoming you here in the name of the Festival Academy, which is an initiative of the European Festivals Association, and for our live stream audiences, I'm Inge Köstermans. We are here together, so in the room we have 30 emerging festival makers from 17 countries, and we will reflect on the next 7 days on the role festivals can play in society. Martina.
Great. And now we are delighted to welcome André Dudemaine, our first keynote speaker. I'll just say a few words about André, if I may. So André Dudemaine from the Innu Nation and the Mashteuiatsh Community is a true warrior for Indigenous arts and culture. He's the co-founder and director of cultural activities at Terres, Vues, Land and Sites, which for over 30 years has been managing Montreal's Tiohtià:ke's multidisciplinary First Peoples Festival. He's also one of the most prominent members of the Indigenous film community and has made a name for himself as a producer and a cultural facilitator. At the Concordia University Film Studies Department, he was the lecturer for the First Nations film class in 2000-2001. He has received more awards than I can ever list, so I will mention only the latest and perhaps the most prestigious, the Compagnon des Arts et des Lettres du Québec, which he received in 2019. I would just like to quote 2 sentences from the tribute Geneviève Picard wrote on that occasion. A man of heart and action, André Dudemaine has made an exceptional contribution to the cultural resurgence of Indigenous peoples. He made us understand that the diversity of expression and artistic practices is a treasure, and that a just society is built on respect, dialogue, and friendship between peoples. Bienvenue, André.
And just to say, the conversation will be facilitated by Mike van Graan, South African playwright and cultural organizer with many hats, and who has drafted this program, 7-day program, together with us. Thank you. André, the floor is all yours.
You should keep your applause. You don't know what I am going to say. You hear me well? Okay, perfect. Gwegwe, Wajia, Antni Nitishinikashin, Piekwagmil Nunil. I am, my name is André, and I am happy to meet you, and I am Innu Montagnier from the Lake Saint-Jean region. So, an old Chinese proverb say that the experience is like a lantern you carry on a stick on your shoulder. It shed light to the way behind you, not in front of you. So I will tell you a story. Maybe some light will help you to your pace toward the future. I don't know, we will see. Also, I remember that Immanuel Kant said that the aesthetic and art are concepts that we cannot intellectually define. And Jean Cocteau, the French poet, has a better way to say it. He said, art and cultures are really vital, but we don't know how and why. So, but I don't know if I can go against the first statement, the Chinese one, but we will see that for us indigenous in Canada in the recent history, art and culture, we know exactly how important they were and how it has helped the actual renaissance of our community. Maybe a foreword. I will give you some element of the bigger picture. And I suppose as many of you comes from countries outside Canada, so it may be needed. And first of all, I should say welcome in Montreal. Welcome and feel safe, feel at home. You are on an indigenous land. This recognition you have just heard, and the fact that an elder from an indigenous community open an event is something pretty new in Montreal. There is really a switch. This festival has been a precursor because Marie-Hélène remembered me that when they started the festival, they had an indigenous theater play in the program, and that was very special. Some artistic festival had recognized the importance of the creation, the artistic vitality of First Nations, but there were very few of them. Most of the festival were just ignoring the indigenous community. So, okay, for the forward, the bigger picture. In Canada, historically, and this is with the foundation of the Canadian Confederacy, more than about 150 years ago, they put the indigenous people as pupils of the state, which means that they had no right to vote, no right to have a property, no right to have an account in the bank, and they created reserves and they tried to sedentarize people that were traditionally mobile on the land. And they have created this system. I call it concentration camps. Some people say I exaggerate, but I don't think so. They created the residential schools where it was mandatory for each children over 7 years old to go the most time of the year, about 9 to 10 months, and they were forbidden to speak their language. They were supposed to become civilized, so they were, what was teach is that their culture, their ancestry, their language was all barbarian and something that has to be erased. And of course, the country has been built on this base. Of course, First Nation has a long tradition to fight against that colonial situation. And more recently, in Quebec, there has been very important historical event that have shaken this mindset that the indigenous peoples were something outside the society. In the 70s, the Quebec government has built a dam, electrical dam in the north, And the Cree and the Inuit people went to the court, and the court stopped the work, and they say, you have to make a treaty with those nations. All of a sudden, the mainstream society in Quebec discovered that some nations, some indigenous nations, has right, and not only has right, they can stop the whole governmental economic development movement in the north. It has created a very particular situation. We have now 2 nations in Quebec that have a treaty, a modern treaty, where they have dealt with the government and have taken back a lot of rights that other nations still dream to have of their own. Another shock was later on when it was in 1990 when in a nearby Mohawk community the neighbor town wanted to enlarge a golf ground, and they decided to take a traditional cemetery and a small wood that were on land that Mohawk considered theirs, but they had no official treaty or rights to establish their property, their ownership of those land. And finally, it finished by a clash between the provincial police and the warriors that were, and all of a sudden, Montreal region, because the Mohawk from Ganawagi took a bridge and made a blockade on a bridge. And all of a sudden, in the summer of 1990, Montreal looked like a country at war, because you have the army that came to try to push back the Mohawk warriors. And you can imagine an island where the bridge are jammed each morning. If you block one, it's the whole city that is blocked. So it has been a major crisis, and it has had a big impact, positive and negative also, because in Montreal it raised a lot of animosity against the Mohawk and the First Nations in general. But at the same time, it was a big statement from First Nation that enough is enough. We are now fighting back, and we are no more invisible and idle victims. And after that, there was a commission established by the federal government. It's more recent, Truth and Reconciliation. They took the name from South Africa, Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And then all of a sudden, in a very public commission, it was on TV, all the newspapers were there, all the victims of the system of the residential school came to give their own testimony of what they have gone through in those residential schools. And now all of a sudden it was a shock because most of the people couldn't imagine what ordeal the children has been through those. And then came the expression cultural genocide. And it was too much. Most of the editorialists said, no, it's not possible. You cannot speak about genocide, even if you add the cultural to it. But the woman who was the judge in Chief Justice at the Supreme Court of Canada which normally, like in other countries, the judges don't take part of a public debate, but exceptionally, she took the mic and said, yes, this is the right expression as a jurist, as somebody who knows how law works. Yes, cultural genocide is exactly the terms. And now, more recently, they have discovered anonym graves where children were enterrés, buried, thank you, on the ground of residential schools that are closed now, but this is something that the indigenous were saying. Many children died there and never went back to their community, and we had no news of them. And now, with the new technology, they can found the grave, and this is the last shock the society received. So this is to tell you that what you can see now is a historical process. You are in the middle of a historical process, and what you see is not what has been there exactly the way you can see it now. Yesterday, a few years ago. So let's go back to the last century, and then we will speak about the subject of this intervention, the Montreal First Peoples Festival, Présence autochtone. I arrived in Montreal, I am from the north, and I arrived in Montreal in the 80s. And it was really the town of festival. Especially in the summer, right? In the beginning of the 80s, the summer in Montreal was called the dullest place in the world, right? Because everybody wanted to go outside Montreal, and only the poor were there drinking beer in front of their porch. And then a lot of festival appears, jazz festival, francophonie, etc., that are well known now, and it changed completely the landscape of Montreal during the summer. And at the same moment, there was a discussion in the indigenous community in Montreal, why not a festival dedicated to the First Nations cultures and arts in Montreal, since it is the town of a festival. And there had been some experiences here and there in the region, mainly. I remember in Val-d'Or and Abitibi, there was a few cultural weekends organized by the Native Friendship Center. In Robertval, too, in the Lac Saint-Jean region, and in Montreal, a couple of film festival, but 2 days, 3 days, and always the organization behind it were organizations that were fighting for the rights or giving service to the communities, and after 1 or 2 experiences, they say it's too much a burden for us. We have another agenda, we are another mandate, we cannot put all the resource that is needed to support a cultural event. Right? You know what it means, all of you, right? To drive a festival. You cannot have other concern in mind. So I was in Montreal in that discussion, and I was telling everybody, the foundation of a festival is a commando operation. Forget about the great organization. Organization can back the operation, but it is in 90% of the festivals. This is a few percent dedicated that decide we found the festival and we do it, and we take the mandate to make the follow-up needed and the work needed to make it happen. So at a point, they told me, well, you are speaking of it so well, you should do it. So finally, with a few friends, we decided to found an Aboriginal festival in Montreal. And we were, the three of us, we were from a cinematographic background. So we were thinking of mostly a film festival with discussion with the public and something that will be that will happen each year in Montreal and that will grow slowly and an easy ride. So we were thinking it was a good idea and that we will have all the support and all will go very well. We were wrong. So we founded an organization, Terres en Vues, Land Insights, and we were preparing doing the preliminary work to organize our event. And then all of a sudden, in Oka, near Montreal, you have the clash between the warriors and the provincial police, and you have really a national crisis around it. And in Montreal, people angry, many people angry against the indigenous resistance because it had a real impact on their life and on the city itself. So all of a sudden, the landscape was really, really different. At a point, we were thinking, maybe we should stop. It won't be possible. And after a while, at the second thought, we said, well, it is not when the news give us exactly the reason why this festival is needed, that we have to let it go. No, we have to follow up with our first idea. And then the doors were closed. One of my colleagues has this expression. We were writing to get funding, and the letter was not signed, and we can hear the door slam at the governmental office or at the Council of Arts. So it was, at the beginning, it was impossible to do it, but we asked some artists, Quebec, French-Canadian white artists and indigenous artists to make a show to raise some money. And many of them say yes. And we were lucky because those who are from the French environment would know Richard Desjardins. He is now very famous. He has his name in the dictionary. But 30 years ago, he was just an unknown artist, but that everybody has heard of. So we asked Richard to come and to be part of the show. And we had a full house. We got $800 in 1990. It was good money. And we had with that a 3-day festival that no one in the newspaper or in TV or in the radio spoke about. It was really almost a clandestine event. And it was so strange. We had Albert Stock, who is a Mohawk from Ganawagi. And you know the Ganawagi Ronan are well known because they are skywalker. Right? They build most of the great skyscrapers in New York. And so he was invited for the 100th year of the Eiffel Tower in Paris. And he climbed the Eiffel Tower with no alpinist gear, just bare hand, and it has been filmed, and we presented it. But outside, every people were saying the Mohawks are all ferocious and savage warriors. So it was really strange to see the difference of what we had. People like Sedalia and drummers and singers, and this perception that the indigenous in general and the Mohawk in particular were just people of fight and clash, and that it was impossible to get along with. So slowly we started to, with no money, to have collaboration with at the, I would say, the ground level, with many organizations that were looking to have indigenous programmation, but didn't know how to do it. For example, la Guilde Canadienne des Métiers d'Art, Canadian Guild of Art and Craft, they told me, we have a lot of artists, but all from the West Coast. We would like to have artists from Quebec and Ontario, from the East, and we don't know how to contact them. And so we organize exhibitions with them within the festival. Later on, it was the 40th anniversary of the Coopérative du Nouveau-Québec, an Inuit organization that are distribute all the indigenous, the Inuit sculptures. They're very famous all around the world, and this is controlled by it is an Inuit organization that up north in Quebec that is in charge of this marketing. So we were looking for a place, and then somebody say, go to the Bibliothèque Saint-Sulpice, the library on Saint-Denis. Maybe they have an exhibition space. I saw the director, and she told me, well, the exhibition space is already a program. I cannot take something new. I said, why not in the great space where the people go to read? I said, why not? And then we had those huge sculptures in that beautiful room. And slowly, like that, we had a lot of contact. At the 4th years, I remember one of civil servant from Heritage Canada, Patrimoine Canadien, came out of our office and said, well, you have demands and it's always no, but I wanted to meet you and see what's going on. And we were discussing, and at the point, my colleague, the same who was speaking about Slam Door, at a point he was really angry and told her, you know, with your retirement, we could, retirement plan, we could finance 10 years of festivals. Oh, then the tone was rising, and I just left the room and said, no, I am not part of it. But believe it or not, 3 months after, we had our first grant from Patrimoine Canadien. José Normandin is the name of the lady. I remember her, and I mention her often because she is the first one that, and then we could go everywhere, have a smaller festival, and then when we created a board with and some people, some important, if I could say people, accepted to be there. And one member of the board, he was a private TV producer, told me, you should be in the committee of Pierre Bourque, who is a candidate for the Mairie de Montréal, to be mayor of Montreal. I said, no, I am a festival director. I cannot be involved in politics. No, 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 you will have to write a speech with the committee. I said, okay. And then nobody in Montreal, all the newspapers say, this guy is crazy, he will never be elected. But anyway, I was in the process, and I was in the backstage, so I said, let's go. And Pierre Bourque was the director before being a candidate to the mairie. He was the director of the Botanical Garden of Montreal, and he told me, you know, the founder of the Botanical Garden had thought about a place for an indigenous garden, and it has never been done. It should. And he told me, you will see if mayor of Montreal, we could change that. And I said, good luck, we hope. Then all of a sudden, yes, he won. Everybody was surprised. He was not supposed to be there, and all of a sudden he was there. And at the same moment, we are 1995, 1996. At the same moment, a civil servant from the Ministère de la Culture, Culture and Communication from Quebec, came to see me, and he was responsible for the indigenous files. And he told me, you have a fantastic project in your strategic plan, but you cannot do it alone. And he was referring to the tricentennial of the Great Peace of Montreal. I explained it now. What is the Great Peace of Montreal? So in the 90s, a thesis has been written by a student of history at the Université Laval, and he published a book, What is the more important historical event of the French presence in North America? This is the Treaty of La Grande Paix de Montréal, and nobody knows about it except a few specialists. Why? Because this is the indigenous diplomacy that have drive the people to sign that continental treaty, and this doesn't correspond as the colonial vision would like to see the indigenous away in the forest when the European settlers were the one who were doing history. So the Great Peace of Montreal, actually, in the end of the 16th century, the indigenous people were dying because of the epidemic that came with new microbe from outside, and the war between the French and the English has been taken with First Nations, some allied with the English, other allied with the French. So people were dying because of the epidemic, and they were dying because of the war. And all what was the economy at the time was the fur trade was impossible because there was a warrior all around the rivers, and if a canoe from another nation arrives, they were attacking it, and everybody, the economy also was completely paralyzed. So an indigenous leader called Gondiaron, a Huron, walk to a different nation and say, we cannot have a separate peace here and there between neighbor nations because the authors will see it as a threat. So we have to have a general treaty. And it was very ambitious at this time. And it was a new idea too. It was very modern, this idea of almost continental treaty. And finally, in 1701 in Montreal came 1,000 delegates from many nations of North America to Montreal, and Montreal at the time had 800 inhabitants. So you can see the scale of the event, and under the authority of the governor of the New France, who signed the treaty as representative of the king, that's important, of the King of France, signed with First Nations, which was a recognition of the sovereignty of First Nations, since a sovereign nation and a souverain, the king, can only sign with other sovereign. So that was really important, but nobody knows about it. In 1999, you could walk through the street of Montreal with a mic. Do you know the Grande Paix de Montréal? Nobody would have been able to give a response because it was not taught in the school. It was not in the official history book, except very specialized book that were for university historians, but not for the public. So with this Michel Noël, the civil servant that came to our office, said, I will organize a meeting with Pointe-à-Calière, who is the Museum of History of Montreal. And then we got a deal, which was incredible, a deal with an official museum, and we were a small commando group. And the museum, the lady, because it's a very feminine management at Pointe-à-Calière, the ladies of Pointe-à-Calière say, okay, we will create a new corporation to the commemoration of the Great Peace of Montreal, and 3 persons from Terres, Vues, land and sites, and 3 persons from the museum. And we will go for a commemoration. And then Pierre Bouc arrived at the Mairie de Montréal, and then we start to speak about that commemoration and try to convince the governments to put money in it. Is it at this time, the government in Quebec was an independentist government, and of course the federal government was a federalist government, and they were fighting each other. So it was really, really difficult, and in Ottawa all the money was given to the friend of the Federalist movement, and it has been finally a big scandal because they have unearthed a very unethical practice, but money were not for us, obviously. And then all of a sudden, the provincial government decided to put the money in it and take the whole bill of the commemoration. So in 2001, all of a sudden, Terres en Vue and the festival, we were a very margin event. We were up front during this year because, and this has been the first turning point, where we have arrived to a point where we were part of the cultural landscape of Montreal. And along the way, we got here and there more and more funding. I was telling I was with Mirakri, a Mohawk who was the president of the board. We were going to each place, and I was telling, do you know, when we were up north on the land and no animals were there, and we were starving, how we survive? And they were tell me, okay, that's easy. We took a small piece and we give a piece to we divided and gave a piece to everybody. So I need a small piece. And I got, and it happened. They got, everywhere I got a small amount here, a small amount here. And many people were telling me, hey, you are lucky. You have the SADC, the Industrial Culture Fund, and you have Conseil des Arts, the Artistic Fund. Usually this is one or two. And I was telling, yes, but look, in their annual report, you will see us at the bottom everywhere. So, and we still have the biggest, we call it the pizza here, right, where all the logo together. We have the biggest pizza in town. Not because we are the festival better finance in Montreal, far away, but we had this structure, this financial structure that hold the way. So after 2001, we were better, right? And we had outdoor activities, which was difficult before Bourque became mayor of Montreal, but we could access a park downtown. And then I see the importance of the landscape to the urban landscape. Because when you put a teepee in town, all of a sudden, people look at it, and it changed the way you see the town. And I remember a magazine asked a few writers to describe a walk in town. And one of the writers told, spring is coming. I see the teepee on Place Émilie-Gamelin. So we were all of a sudden part of the city because we were part of the landscape. And then this park slowly became less and less good because it was the place where, and maybe it was okay, I don't want to put a judgment here, but this is where the police and the authority push all the marginal population, the homeless people mainly, and the park was no more in shape because nobody wanted to invest in it. And we were, to have the activity, we had to put fence and push away the people that were there. Usually that was not really nice, but it was the only way to have the indigenous people coming in Montreal. And then they were at the opening a new place, Place des Festivals. You can see it, it's very near. It's new, it's 12 years now. They were opening it, and we were supposed, I said, we are going there. We stay downtown, we have to stay downtown. It is like a chessboard. We have to put our piece downtown. If we go to the islands, like many people ask us to do, we are losing something. We are losing ground. We have to establish that as first people, we need to be at the first place, downtown, and at the place, at the hottest place, Place des Festivals. In 2019, I was coming back from vacation in August, and I got a phone from the city, the responsible of the culture division. She told me, André, you won't be happy. No. Why? Because Francophonie is coming on Place des Festivals. You stay in the small park, and you are stuck there. And I said, well, you are not strong of consultation. She told me, well, with the consultation, we know you would have started a war. So I responded, the war is declared at this moment, come now. And happily, then I spoke a really big word, the R word. I said, this is a racist way to treat First Nation when because the mayor, it was no more book, the mayor Tremblay had told me, never, never it will happen that the Francophonie will crash you as long as I am mayor. And I said, well, he lied to us. And this way to not respect First Nations and the word, it's in North America, a racist tradition. And I spoke about it publicly, and I was in the front page of the newspaper, and everybody told me, André, you go too far. That's terrible, that's terrible. And I also said this administration has a mafia-style gérance, since they are enclosed with millionaires, and they decide for the rest of the people without consultation. And then they told me, oh, André, you cannot speak like that. And everybody was considering me as out of the game forever, because I have been overboard in my public declaration. But all of a sudden, in the radio and in TV, there is news. The real mafia was in the office of the mayor to get the best contract for public works. So all of a sudden, people look at me and said, maybe he knew something. And so it changed the relation. And Richard Desjardins, the one who was there at the very beginning of the festival, was now pretty famous. He was going to give his first show at the Olympia in Paris. Olympia in Paris is like the Madison Square Garden in New York. If you go there, this is the consecration as an artist. And he was there, and I phoned to him, and I said, you know, Richard, we may need you. And he said, how come? And I told the story. And he said, I was there when the mayor, Tremblay, told you that it would never happen. He lied to us. And then I don't have what he said, because it is bigger word than what I have said. And so I said, okay, keep quiet. If we need you a declaration, we will phone to you. But he was so angry. So at the Olympia, first show of Richard Desjardins, the curtain is open. Desjardins come to the mic and say, okay, I will begin my show, but before I have a statement to make. I support an indigenous festival in Montreal. He is endangered by the Francophonie of Montreal. So with the French camarades here, we will organize a boycott of the Francophonie of Montreal. Then I begin my show. So it has the effect of a bomb. And then I was asked to go to the City Hall, and they beat me, and they give me, excuse the expression, but a lot of shit. And then at the end I said, that's all? They said, no, we will find somebody that will be a consultant. Well, it was somebody to an intermédiaire, and finally, the guy, very brilliant guy, it was a civil servant, retreated, and he arrived one morning and told us, I want to meet you. I said, yes, and so he said, you know, I met the city this morning, and this afternoon I am meeting you, and the first thing I told to the municipality that the public declaration that André Dudemaine is doing is not the way at all to deal with such problem. I condemn that absolutely. So I said, that's all you said? He said, no. I added, if you accept the bad words, on his statement, André Dudemaine is 100% right. The Indigenous Festival cannot survive if two streets from its main place, you have a huge festival with 50 times its budget. So we have to find a way. And finally, we had to change dates in August, and we had to go to the Place des Festivals. But it was not that easy, arriver to Place des Festivals, because there was a body that was created at the same time called the Partenariat Quartier des Spectacles, partnership of the show neighborhood. Voilà. Et we had to make a presentation to have activities on Place des Festivals. And I knew the guy from the Francophonie, and I knew other people at the board, and they were telling me, you know what he's telling to everybody? I said, no, tell me. He says, you know, when the big festivals are there, there is crowd on the Place des Festivals. Nobody can really relax, come and see the fountains and be quiet on this place. So after the big festival, it should be an open space with no activity. Because he was afraid that our small festival would be would become competitive to his own event. So I contacted the designer, a friend of mine, that I have met on a TV set because he had to make indigenous decor and I told him you should work with indigenous craftsmen. And he said, okay. And so we worked together to have the decor organized with indigenous artists. And he was so amazed he discovered the indigenous arts and traditions and design. And he was always telling me, André, we have to work together, we have to work together. And I said, yes, but on Place Émilie-Gamelin, nobody wants to invest or to put a cent. But when I knew I had to go before the Partenariat du Quartier des Spectacles, I told him, we have to sit down with indigenous artists and to think about a design for the Place des Festivals. He said, André, I am the happiest man in the world. So we sit down, and he looked at all we had in the office, the posters, I am in the time yet?
You've got till next week.
Okay. Okay. So yeah. Okay. So with him we have conceived really 100-foot teepee with a crane that holds the teepee, animals, and you can find it on Instagram, internet, where the photo of Présence Autochtone on the Place des Festivals is there. So I arrived with design for the Place des Festivals, and I told we are not there to make the Place des Festivals a big football place for a crowd. We want to narrate this place and give the people an experience in this place. And I won. This time I won. It's not like in the Western, sometimes the indigenous win. And and finally, many people were telling, "Oh, wow, it will be the catastrophe. They won't be able to stand this huge place and the difficulty." Not at all. We are still the one. 10 years after, everybody in town is telling us, and even the guys from the Musée d'Art Contemporain, who has windows on the Place des Festivals, everybody told us, you are the only one that knew exactly how to use that space, and what you did is fantastic and beautiful. So this was a big game changer, and since that time, we have grown, and we have a real indigenous festival in Montreal, and we are even invited to tell the story. Voilà.
Andre, I think that you raised an incredible number of points in your storytelling that we are going to be dealing with over the next few days. Things that have to do with whose money makes festivals, who decides on when festivals happen, who decides on the curating of festivals. And it's really interesting to have listened to you and narrating this particular story about your festival that you've had to spend so much time and energy and resources bringing to this point. And although you went a little bit over time, I was very loath to cut you in because, in a way, part of when we started today, it was about affirming First Nations people. So to then cut you in and say, hey, your story's gone on a bit much, wouldn't have been appropriate at all. But so thank you very much for sharing that. I just maybe did want to ask, you mentioned the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa, which is where I'm from. One of the criticisms of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission is that it was a political exercise that allowed those who actually had oppressed the majority of people to get away with it in some ways. And there wasn't very much in the way of reparations to those who had come as victims of apartheid to tell their stories. And in fact, there was a real struggle to get any kind of compensation. So I suppose the question to you is, as a representative of the First Nations people who've obviously experienced incredible colonialism and the like, and who now, in a way, in terms of the exercise that we had earlier, recognizing, the ancestry of who owned this land historically, but the story that you were telling is one that's it's still a marginal story. It's still a story on the fringes of who has cultural power, who is dominant in terms of culture within Montreal, within Canada. So I suppose the question is, if you had to advise festival makers who are wanting their festivals to address historical issues such as colonialism, apartheid, exclusion, and the like, how do they go about doing that?
Well, I think you have to be at the same time warrior and diplomat at the same time. You need ally, so you need to be to establish friendship with people that can understand the issue, and especially people that have that are not at the top direction, but people that are working on the ground level. This is the most important people. This is when you can make a change at the ground level, the up level will follow. And sometimes you have to be warrior, and but not always. And you have to know when to do it, because if you do it always, you will lose your impact rapidly.
And in terms of how to have an impact, do you feel that by having your own festival, you are having an impact? Or would you prefer to be integrated into festivals that have a big impact already on the basis of other people curating it? Or would you like to be a curator of festivals that have major impact so that you can decide what goes into those festivals?
Well, I think it's a matter of cultural sovereignty to have our own festival, and also we give a chance to young artists that normally a more mainstream festival would not program, because they would say they are not ready. So now we have young artists that have passed through our festival. We cannot hire them no more, because their fees are top and they are doing the big festival. But we are happy with that, because we have been just at the good moment in their career to go through that difficulty, the beginner's difficulty.
Sure. Most of the festival managers here are younger folk, and I wanted to ask as a final question, just about younger people within First Nations communities. How do they relate to what you and the elder who was with us this morning that you're articulating? Because Canada offers numerous opportunities through assimilation. And so how do you nurture cultural values, ways of making meaning, identity with a younger generation that may not have the institutional memory that you have?
Yeah, alors, there is two aspects in your question. I can tell another story. In 1986, I worked with a filmmaker, a very famous here, Arthur Lamotte, who had made the documentaries about the traditional of my people, the Innu people, with the elders. Fantastic documentary. And then, all of a sudden, he decided to make a film about contemporary artists from First Nations. And I worked with him, and people, when we were meeting funders, at the end of the meeting, sometimes people kept me and said, "Is Arthur going well?" It was like he was not no more accurate, because modern art and indigenous art were not possible in their mind. And so we work with the artists. And knowing that, and this is Arthur that teach me that, he said, when there is a crisis, when the cultural, territorial activities that has given the culture are no more available, there is a crisis, and the artist is like the traditional shaman. He is the healer. He is the one who can bring other images, other way to think the identity. And that's how, and the other story, there is Samian, who was a young rapper who was doing all his rap in French. And we knew he was from the Algonquin Anishinaabe background. And at a point, a very famous Quebec rap band, the Loco Locas, the guys came to me and say, "Why is not working in his own language?" I said, "Because he is losing and he wants success, so he thinks he has to go." But I said, "If you want to work with him, I can manage that, and he will do it in Algonquin." And so we organized and he was young, 19, 20 years old, and he was meeting the big star. And then Biz, the leader of the group, told him, "You know, we can have artistic collaboration, you and me, if you do your stuff in your ancestral language." And the guy said, "Wow, okay, I will work with my grandma." So he's probably the only rapper in the world who worked with his grandmother. And now he is a big star in Quebec. And his last album was launched in the last year festival, on Place des Festivals, all in Algonquin language.
Brilliant. Well, I hope that his grandmother scored as well.
So you want to be modern, go to see your grandma.
There we go. So, thank you very much. Mr. Dudemaine, thank you very much for being with us and for that very stimulating story, which, as I said, raised a lot of issues that we will delve a little bit deeper into over the next week. So, folk, we are now heading into the more introductory session where we just get to know who happens to be in the room. We're going to take a 15-minute break. If you could maybe help by just moving the tables to the back of the room and then creating a circle with chairs, that will be great. So we'll see you back here in about 15 minutes. Thank you.